All right, so we're going to begin. Thank you guys for attending. So today we're going to talk about time management, time and project management. So there's different aspects that you're going to consider, but our agenda for today is we'll talk a little bit about the team and the team form of the survey, potential for difference maker as class credit, the mentor program, available time for team members. This is very important. How to have a good meeting, project management, Kanban and Gantt charts, having a project plan and a project budgeting plan. Actually, I forgot to change the name on that, but I'll be talking about that. So one of the things in that folder I shared with you with all the details, one I shared with let's see, I'm just going to pull up. I forgot to. So the folder that I shared with you at the beginning of boot camp, that folder has a lot of these documents that I'm going to be discussing today. And that's where you'll be able to grab any of the topics I'm talking about. There's actually a book there. It's not really a book. It's kind of like a little pamphlet on project management that I found from a website that was pretty good. They did a nice job, and I'll be taking some stuff out of that as we go through our presentation today. So I want to talk about the Foley and Lardner 5,000 in-kind legal services. So the three teams that got that were ZipperBuddy, EDUX, and SparkCell. And then the market plan opportunity was EDUX. They were if people are interested in that, we might still be able to do a market plan opportunity, but the Foley and Lardner, those are the three teams that got that. So the team form and the survey, so that'll be sent out today or tomorrow. I have to add a couple more mentors in, but essentially you're going to put in the skills that you're going to need. So these are the skills we're going to need for our team. That way, and then what you can do is you can also look at mentor profiles, but they'll be anonymous, so you won't see their names, but you can look for skills in there. And then there'll be if you met a mentor at demo day that wants to help you, you can type their email in as well. And we'll use all those different criteria to help match you. So one of the things that's really nice about the difference makers, you can actually get class credit for different pieces. So for example, if you're in the honors college, you can have this as a class credit. If you're working with difference maker fellows in some colleges to implement this, you might be able to use them as a independent study style course. I can give that, if somebody new wants to do this, I can actually provide them with some of the structure that I'm talking about today. And I'm also going to talk about how your mentor meetings should be structured. So essentially, you're going to meet with your mentors at a minimum monthly, and I'll talk about how that's going to be done. And basically, this project plan doesn't necessarily apply for those working with faculty for credit already, or students not working on the difference maker project for class credit. This may not apply as well. So it depends. I really recommend using these techniques, but that's going to be entirely up to you and your teams. So the team mentor needs survey, please submit that by August 1st by 5. And what our goal is to typically have several mentors per team, typically 2 to 3, sometimes 4 mentors, depending on the engagement, the team members themselves. Oh, so I got a chat here. Let's see what the question. Yep, we can talk about that offline, Tommy. All right, good. Sandy, yeah, we might be able to actually help you with that as well. So we can, so essentially talk to me if those are things that you're interested in, trying to get class credit, because I think an independent study is a really good way to go for one of these classes, or for one of these projects. So for the first team meeting, essentially what you'll work on is a team contract. You want to determine 3 to 5 goals, the associated tasks for the meeting. And the other thing you'll look at is determine the amount of time each team member is going to work on the team difference maker project. And if you're using mentors, so mentors are not required, but we really recommend mentors. They really help a lot. They can guide you in ways that you haven't, very unexpected ways that you weren't considering. But if you are using mentors, you're going to review the team expectations and responsibilities documentation. So I usually go to the mentor meetings, the first one. So I will help guide all this, and I'll send out an agenda and what have you. But there's also going to be a team contract where you want to think about your team structure, procedures on how you're going to resolve issues or complete tasks, look at what the personal accountability is, and then the consequences of the breach of this. So like in my classes, we've done this, and students, one of the consequences might be like if a student didn't do what they were supposed to do is, hey, you gotta buy us all a coffee or something like that. Or it could be you have to do extra work. I mean, your team can think about that. So I'm showing right now the team structure. This is what they call an organizational chart. You may have heard the term org chart. That's what that refers to. And you'll see sort of you have your DM team leader, and then you have your business and organization leader, your technical leader, typically if you're doing something technical, or if you had, it could be manufacturing leader, things of that nature. It doesn't, these are just examples, a rough example, but under each of those, you'd have team members under the leaders. And then, so I want you to think about, as part of your team as well, you have your mentors, your difference maker staff, which Sandy talks about. She mentioned that on demo day that we're part of her team, which is nice. But you also have just your team members, but other things are your university resources, your external resources, for example, like E4All, or people who went and found mentors already on their own. So, yeah, I actually looked at zenyai.io the other day. It was really, really nice, Tony. So when you determine your 3 to 5 goals, this will be one of the things you'll add to your team mentor needs survey. You want to think about your organizational or business goals. Then you want to think about your product and or service deployment goals, how you're going to do that. You use these to develop your project plan. And then think about the tasks required for each goal, and then the scope. So the scope is how much are we going to do, like for example, how many are we going to make, or are we just making our prototype right now? How many customers do we want to interact with? You have to kind of think about the scope of your goal, not to do everything all at once, because then you probably won't get anything done if you try to do everything all at once. So you pick specific chunks of items. And then you want to think about the time required for each goal. Now, one of the challenges of that is if you've never done this task before, you may not know how much time it takes. So you guess, and you'll learn. And if you end up repeating this task, you'll know it the next time you do it. Oh, it took us this many hours or this much time. And you'll kind of see this chart here where each kind of piece contributes to the other. So you set your goal, you determine the scope, the tasks that you're going to need to do that, the resources needed. We always talk about resources here at Difference Maker. The success requirements. So what makes this completed, what makes it successful, and who works on each goal, and then the time to complete it. So that's sort of the process you want to think about. And then the time available for each project. So once you determine how many hours per week each team member is available, you want to start thinking about team commitments relative to their other responsibilities, because this happens every semester. You have to think about your family obligations, your coursework. So for example, a credit hour, 1 hour of classroom or direct, I think this is right from the university website, 1 hour of classroom or direct faculty instruction, and a minimum of 2 hours out of class student work each week for approximately 15 weeks for 1 semester or trimester hour of credit. So for example, 15 classroom hours have a minimum expected 30 hours of homework. You want to think about your jobs. You want to think about what you have to sacrifice in order to complete this. And another consideration is some team members may be busy at certain times where others may have a little lull. So in those situations, maybe the weekly commitment changes for team members, and it allows you to maintain that work output if you budget your time correctly. So don't worry about this. Isn't a really scary equation. It looks it, but it's not. essentially it's the duration of the task in weeks is equal to the task hours required divided by the amount of hours each member of your team is going to work on that task. And then I have an example here where you'll see team member 1 contributes 10 hours per week, and team member 2 contributes 5 hours a week. If the weeks to complete the task is 45 hours, you'll see the duration is 45 divided by 10 plus 5 equals 45 divided by 15 equals 3 weeks to complete the task. So, and if this is confusing, I can certainly talk to you more about it, but essentially you're trying to figure out how many weeks things take. And you can put that into a table where you'll have your team members listed on the left. And in this example, it's just team member 1, 2, 3, 4, how many hours per week they can commit. So for a total of 25 hours in this example of all your team members together. But then we have these tasks, task 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is all just made up stuff, just to kind of demonstrate. You'll see that there's task 1 takes 50 hours, 2 20, 3 30, and 4 25. And then you'll see each week how many hours each person can commit based on their schedules. And then at the bottom, you'll see how many weeks it'll take to complete. And again, you'll be guessing on how long it's going to take initially because you may not have done it. Most likely you haven't done some of these tasks before. But once you actually go through the process, you'll be good. So another consideration is there's a thing called an Eisenhower matrix. So you'll see here you have basically you're identifying tasks by how much of an impact they'll take and how much effort it's going to take. So you'll see you have high impact, low impact, which makes a big difference in your business. And then you have like low effort and high effort. So low impact and low effort would be a fill-in. A low impact and low effort and high impact would give you a quick win. Something like, oh, I only have to do this and this is going to make this big of a difference. And then high effort and high impact is going to be a major project. And you want to think about things and consider things in using this as part of your technique to help figure out, consider this technique when determining the length and the importance of each piece of your business or your tech or your offering, however you want to think about it. So when doing formal meetings, one of the things you want to do is before the meeting, you want to schedule it. So one of the things I suggest is on your first mentor meeting, try to schedule all your meetings for like the next 3 or 4 months at once, because everybody's schedule is usually free. Many teams, what I've learned is many teams like to schedule the next meeting, and then at the next meeting, schedule the second meeting, and at the second meeting, schedule the third. But it's much more difficult to do it if you do it all at once. And you don't have to do it for the whole like 6-8 months, but you could do it for like in September, maybe do it till December, January. And then when your January meeting, do it for the spring and what have you. But then for each meeting, you want to determine an agenda, and it doesn't have to be a big formal thing, but you determine the agenda. If previous meeting notes are available, use those to help guide your agenda topics, and then send and share the agenda 4 to 7 days before your actual meeting. During the meeting, make sure the team follows the items on the agenda, and remain focused on it. It's very easy to get unfocused. It happens at meetings all the time. I used to work for a guy. We would have an hour meeting and he would go for 2 to 3 hours. And one of the things he didn't realize was nobody really cared after like 45 minutes, and people struggling to kind of pay attention at that point. They really should have just scheduled a second meeting or a third meeting. But remain focused, take notes. Those are called meeting minutes, and schedule your next meeting if not previously done. And after the meeting, send the notes and the meeting minutes as soon as possible. Okay. Any questions so far? All right. So one one type of structure for meetings is called Scrum. And this is a very much a software thing, but they use it in a lot of different industries. One of the pieces of it, it keeps meetings short. It can be in person or on Zoom. Meetings are typically between 15 and 30 minutes. And you always stand up. And the reason you stand up is hopefully it makes the meeting not so long if you're standing up. That's one of the theories behind it. Each team member provides a brief status of their goals for the week since the previous meeting. They're discussing if they have any difficulties. And if they're able to help someone, they say, okay, let's talk about it offline. You don't necessarily want to deal with it in the meeting. You just want to meet afterwards because it helps keep it shorter. Because what ends up happening in a lot of meetings, and anyone who may have attended large meetings with like 5 to 10 people, you'll notice like 2 people end up having a conversation while everybody's just kind of there. And you really should just take that offline. So in industry, this meeting occurs Monday through Friday, once a day. I don't think difference maker teams need to meet once a day. I really think 2 to 3 times a week would be beneficial. But the idea is it needs to be consistent, and that's where the piece that's really helpful is. So project management in general, it's a structure. If anybody's ever seen improv is a structure, but entrepreneurship is also a structure. It kind of says do these things, but it's not necessarily you have to do it exactly this way, but it's like this is the way you really want to think about doing it. For example, customer interviews. We say you have to do customer interviews, but we don't tell you, hey, these are the questions you have to ask. We tell you the way you might want to ask questions. Don't ask leading questions where you're kind of guiding someone to an answer you want, but ask those kind of open-ended questions, non-leading, things of that nature. And the structure is just a technique determining how to approach goals and tasks. So improv uses a structure of yes and, where you essentially say, you come up with a suggestion, then somebody builds on your suggestion, and each person builds the scene based on each person's suggestion. But one of the things about improv more generally, it's the ability to react to the situation on a dime or right away, making use of what you have available. And in entrepreneurship, understanding your customer needs through secondary research, leveraging other people's information, or doing primary research, as I talked about before, but also just determining a problem, developing a solution, and testing with your customers. It's all structure-based concepts. So you're familiar with this. So I'm going to show this 7 or 8 minute video. It's really interesting, and I'll let the video speak for itself. It basically is having to react to a situation that was unexpected in a way that, and I let it go on because it's funny, but it's also kind of like you'll see how sometimes when something happens that's unexpected, it'll change the course, and then it can go on and on. So I let the whole video play intentionally. Thank you, Sandy. Sorry about that. Thanks, Levon. Actually, thank you all for helping me with some of the. I wasn't expecting some of the things that were happening this morning. Anyways, what I was saying is this is a really good example of expecting the unexpected, or just thinking about the unexpected. At the end, when Lisa says, when she goes, I'm not comfortable with this at all. I think that sort of says a lot for her commitment to her job. And, they tried to make it right. And it was a humorous segment, but it speaks to the problem of just being, unexpected things happen. And, we might not know how to deal with them initially, but hopefully we'll adjust and we'll be able to deal with them. So I really like that. I actually think I found this because I was reading about project management and they actually highlighted this video. So project management, it's a sequence of tasks that need to be completed to attain a certain outcome. Usually it's a temporary endeavor with a definite beginning and end, completed within certain boundaries and constraints. And depending on its complexity, it can be managed by a single person or hundreds. So this is from one of the books that I have in that directory online. And essentially, you would have, for your organization, you would probably have multiple projects, potentially some parallel with each other, potentially one after, probably a little bit, it's going to be several parallel and some one after the other. but you want to think about the project being bound by three features to create something new: the scope, which is the feature and functionality offerings, the timeline, the schedule, when are things done, and then the allocated resources, such as costs, and budget, people, tools, or other supporting frameworks, and other things that might come into play. And on the business model canvas, you'll think about this in your resources section. And then the stakeholders. The stakeholders is anyone who has a vested interest in the company and can be affected by the company's business operations and performance. And they are typically investors, employees, customers, suppliers, communities, governments, or trade associations.
Because that wasn't me.
An entity stakeholder can be both internal or external to the organization. Difference maker team stakeholders include all the above, but includes the donors.
Yeah, actually, I happened to look at my
the mentors and volunteers,
so I called Visa
the difference maker, and the university itself.
But it was pending, and they said I couldn't file.
So here's a Kanban board. So this is usually, this could be a virtual table, or it could be, you could actually do it on paper, you could do it on a whiteboard. You list your tasks, you have a column for to do, doing, waiting, and done. And you can add other columns. This is just a very basic Kanban board. Like, for example, like I like the waiting column because a lot of times I'm waiting for people to get back to me. But essentially each row is a task, and you just kind of say, this is where I am on the task. So I'm going to show another video about the Vermont Teddy Bear Company. So the reason I show this is basically, here's a Gantt chart, and this Gantt chart is actually kind of what we just saw, and it talks about things that can be done in parallel and things that you have to wait till other things are done. So for example, you'll see that the green boxes, they correspond to completed work. The orange boxes correspond to work that needs to be completed. So you'll see that they can cut the fur and cut the material and cut accessories all at the same time. You see in activity 1 or day 1, if you want to think about it. And then on day 2, you still can cut fur and cut material, but you also can start sewing accessories. And then on day 3, and you'll see like sort of things that have to happen that are prerequisites, if you will, to the next step. And that's kind of what this chart talks about. And then the days that things are happening. So this is just another technique. Now there's tools like Monday.com that is available to students. I don't know if they give you the full experience for the whole process, but essentially you can put stuff in Monday.com. You can also pay for it, and it's so much per license per user. And there's other ones too. I know a lot of students that I've worked with have used Monday.com, but that you can actually go from like a Gantt chart view to a Kanban view and vice versa. But anyways, you'll see the whole process that we kind of looked at laid out in this Gantt chart. And that's the whole purpose of showing that video. So your project plan, it's going to be based on your idea plan. And it's really going to be just sort of a spreadsheet, but the long-term project plan would be problem. It's based on your idea plan, your problem, opportunity, solution, resources. It's going to be based on your stakeholders, your timeline. You're going to set project goals, tasks and procedures, and the risks that you might run into, because that's one of the things you always need to think about. Hey, this potentially unexpected outcome could occur. What do I do if that unexpected outcome occurs? And then sort of your results and expected results. So, and that's sort of those are your sort of requirements. Whoops. So I thought I had one more, but apparently not. Are there any questions? I'm actually going to pull that last slide up. All right. So if there's no questions related to project management, we are done for today. I will stick around to answer some questions.